Hi, my name's Lois and I'm the founder of Twiggy Tags, and today we're going to do a fitting video for our Apex harness, which is this one here. Now, I would say the Apex is the one that is a slightly different fit to all of our other harnesses. The primary reason for that is that it is adjustable on the chest girth, but it isn't adjustable on the neck. Now, fear not, that does not mean that it needs to go over your dog's head. It has a handy little clip, which means it can go around your dog's head if they are gear shy, but it does sit and fit slightly different to something you perhaps may have been used to. When your harness arrives, it's going to look a bit like this. You're going to take it off the packaging and it's probably going to look a smidge wonky like this. Now, I assure you there's absolutely nothing wrong with your harness, but it does come off the shelf a bit like a starchy suit. You have to wear it in a little bit. You have to let the dog kind of mold it and pull it into shape. This is how it's designed. It's designed to be able to form, fit and mold around your dog's shape, because this can work from anything from a bulldog to a Frenchie, all the way up to a whippet and like a greyhound sort of shape. So it's very, very versatile. The Apex harness is possibly our least adjustable, but most versatile harness. The reason being is that it has this super long chest plate. It only has 2 adjustment points, which are on the chest girth here and on the other side. And the neck is not adjustable. This is a fixed neck piece. However, it still has a neck clip, which means it doesn't need to go over your dog's head. You use the neck clip, detach the Velcro just here, and then you want to lift up the nose, pass the bottom end of the clip through, and then you have it open. And then you want to undo the 2 buckles, pass it around your dog's neck, and then over the chest, like Bailey has got it there. Once you've put the harness on your dog, you've got your 2 clips here and your neck clip here. You're going to have a little fiddle around to make sure that it is the right fit. You're looking to have a 2-finger gap on the chest here, which is what I've got there, which is perfect. And the way to adjust the chest piece is just to move this adjuster here. We do have tails, so the closest towards the end of the tail that the adjuster finishes, the better, because it stops the tails from kind of flapping about a little bit. It keeps it all neat and tidy. If you do want to adjust it tighter or looser, like I said before, you're just pulling the pieces of webbing back and forth just to make sure that the fit is perfect, and then clipping it back on like that. Now, with the Apex, like I said, the neck isn't adjustable. This is so that when a dog is pulling into the harness, perhaps they're a tracking dog, perhaps they just like to walk in front of you, that the neck sits exactly where it should. So it shouldn't be too high up against the neck here, nor should it put any pressure on the lower part of their neck or the upper part of their back. This is specifically important on something that I'm going to mention later. When your dog's moving, adventuring, running and jumping, it may shift to the side a little bit here and there. That is absolutely fine and absolutely normal. Your harnesses are not meant to be a straitjacket. They are meant to fit comfortably. Much like my t-shirt bends and molds with me as I move around, that's what we want the harness to do. On that note, you will notice when your dog's head goes forwards, when they lean down, you will get a slight gaping here. Now, if that didn't happen, it would be so tight. It's like if my t-shirt was permanently tucked in and I bent forward, you can see the t-shirt's really tight here. However, you want it to have that bit of motion. You will see later on when I show you a different couple of sizes on Bailey that there is such thing as too much gaping. You don't want them to be able to get their front leg through, and you don't want them to be able to kind of back out of the harness entirely. There is a really nice balance there, but a little bit of gaping is absolutely fine. So really good fit here. I'm really happy with where the neck sits on Bailey, and I'm really happy with this 90-degree angle here. Like I said, if the chest plate was any shorter, you don't want it to be at this angle or this angle. You really want it to be roughly 90 degrees there. You also then want to give you a 3 to 4 finger gap behind the armpits there to stop it rubbing underneath the armpits, generating any hot spots, and then having full clear shoulder movement here so that when they're fully stretched out when they're running, you have full rotational movement of their shoulders, which is very, very important. We've done the chest, we've got the gap behind the armpits, and we've got the space around the shoulders. The next thing to look at is this section at the front. You can see we've got a cute little flag logo on the front there. If you have a feel of that and then just push your finger down behind the harness, that's where you should feel the breastbone of the dog. Now, it's very similar to a person's Adam's apple, but it is just that slightly pointy section of your dog where it just protrudes slightly, some more than others, and that's where you want that flag to sit, especially on your first fit, and just to make sure it is the correct fit of your dog. If it's any higher towards the neck, this may be a sign of it being too big or too small. You want to make sure that it has a really nice space between neck and that breastbone, but also that that Y shape isn't too far down into between their legs. So it's a really good middle ground between the two. And then finally, you don't want it to be so wide around the neck that it actually comes over their shoulders. We sometimes see this if somebody's tried to size their puppy into a bigger size and the neck area comes over the shoulders. We absolutely don't want this. We need this area to be totally clear. And finally, we've done all of the areas up here. The last section to check, as this harness has a particularly long chest plate, we do want to make sure that we are avoiding any area of manlyhood back here and making sure that it doesn't protrude past that last rib. It's very important that despite the handy handle for grabbing, this is not a lifting harness, but also we want to make sure that your dog is the most comfortable they can be. We've also got a handy little light loop on the top to attach our Trek Bright light, which is a perfect opportunity. Trust me, the reflective stitching and piping on this harness shines like the top of the Chrysler building, but it's even better if you add a Trek Bright light on. Next up, the last bit of hardware we're going to talk about is the two D-rings. You've got a D-ring at the back. You will notice this sits slightly further back than most harnesses just because of the way that the harness is built. And you've also got the D-ring on the front just here. Now, we will say this time and time again, that front D-ring is not to be used on its own, but this especially matters when it comes to the Apex harness. The whole anatomy of this harness is focused on the fact that the neck section is pulled whilst your dog is walking. They can loose lead walk, that's absolutely fine, but the tension is built through the back D-ring, which means if you attach your lead to the front, your dog will get its leg out. Even if the harness was the perfect fit, it will restrict the movement, it will slide, it will rotate, and it just won't have the effect that you're trying to kind of get with that training. We offer plenty of other harnesses which can help you with this training element, with this double lead method, but we wouldn't necessarily advise it unless you're in the final stages of your double lead training with this harness in particular. What we do like to say is there are other things that you could attach, such as a seat belt to this harness, and the reason why the D-ring is there is as an extra added safety feature. We also would say this harness, unless you're willing to buy more than one, is very much an adult harness. Because the neck isn't adjustable, we very much say this is a harness for when your dog is fully grown or almost at that fully matured stage. So you can see, generally speaking, this harness is very symmetrical. So this also reflects that where the adjusters need to be is very symmetrical, because if you make it lopsided, the whole thing will twist on the dog's back like this, and you want to make sure that the two plates are kind of aligned. And to do this, you need to make sure that the two adjusters are symmetrical. So that means that they are adjusted with equal space either side. You've not got one over one way and one super large on the other. Just because it fits around the total girth, they do need to be symmetrical. Despite the lack of neck adjustment, you will find this harness is super versatile and inclusive. We offer a wide range of sizes in here, from little all the way up to large. This is probably the middle size. It's definitely not the largest. And we're proud to be able to offer such an expanse of sizes, especially for those deep-chested, broad-chested, and slightly pigeon-chested dogs. So I absolutely love the amount of padding on this harness. Although it's quite minimalistic in its coverage, the padding is super chunky. However, you'll find that this is actually, if not our lightest weight harness. It feels like a feather, which means that the impact that it has on your dog is very little. It also means that it is super water resistant, so it dries so fast. So it is great for those kind of mucky, wet and swimming dogs. With Apex, we find when we're fitting at shows that this has a beautiful effect on dogs. If we've been told that perhaps owners find their dog is a bit paralysed or a bit uncomfortable or quite just set in stone when their dog puts a harness on because there's a lot of coverage, they'll pick this up and the dog will be totally different. It's almost as if there's nothing there, although I assure you it is fully strength tested and perfectly strong enough even for the biggest of dogs. And most of the time when we hand this to the owner, I'm sure as you're fitting your dog now, you're going, wow, that feels really lightweight. It is so lightweight, which is perfect for so many reasons. With all of our harnesses, we do have that label on the inside, but this one is slightly different. The reason being is because the style of material doesn't adhere to that label. So the label is in a slightly different place. You won't find it anywhere visible. In fact, you just want to go on the underside of the Apex and you will find 2 black labels. One is our batch number and the other one is all the important information. So that's got your sizing on, that has your details for us, and it also has a handy QR code. Now that's got me with all the fitting information. It's got your care instructions and it's got so much more information. We've got a perfect harness here for Bailey. We've got that 90-degree angle. We've got the gap behind the armpit. We've got plenty of space for his manlyhood, clear shoulders, and it is not riding up the neck. So this is what a harness should look like. Now let's have a look at what it shouldn't look like if it was perhaps too big or too small. This is the size up from what he was wearing. We're just gonna pop this on, undo the neck and the 2 back sections here. It goes beautifully around his neck. Great, you're thinking, woo, great start here. We've got really nice position around his neck. Once again, as I said before, sometimes they do come off a little starchy. This is perfectly normal. This isn't necessarily a sign of it being too big, not just yet. So we're gonna pass that underneath the chest and clip it either side. So we've actually got great space on the back here. We've got a good space on the neck. But what we want is that 3 to 4 finger gap, because he will actually fit in this chest girth size. But there's a couple of other things that mean that this harness isn't suitable for Bailey. Chest girth, that's looking great. But let's look at the things that aren't so great. We have some contact, I fear, with the manlyhood here. The chest piece is so long on Bailey. We've got 6 finger gap behind the armpits, which is a little bit too far. We've also got a problem here that when he leans forwards, I think this is going to gape too much, which means a leg may go through. So let's show other end of the spectrum, what a harness when it's too small could look like. Okay, and now we can see what is a little bit on the small side. Let's look at these key factors, because it might not be this extreme, but there are a couple of key factors that you will see. Firstly, they're at the edge of the tether here. So we've not got any adjustment. So any fluctuations in weight, we're not going to get much movement there. So that's point number 1. Point number 2, we're at an angle here. We're not at that perfect 90 degrees. So we've got tucking into the armpits, and we don't have that clear space behind the armpits. We've got good free range of shoulder movement, so great. So it feels like it could be an option, but once again, we've got another problem here. It is so far up the dog's neck and it is pinching on the bottom of their neck here, which is not what we want at all. And then once again, that flag where we said it should be on the breastbone is almost 2 steps above the breastbone there. So it is too tight. So as I mentioned before, although it's not our most adjustable, it is one of our most versatile harnesses, fitting this broad range of different shapes and sizes of dogs. One of those dogs it fits so perfectly is the Dachshund. Now, Dachshunds, as you well know, have that long back, slightly shorter legs, and also a lot of them have some really broad chests, which is where Apex comes in so well for them. Now on Bertha here, so beautifully modelling, she's got a 4 finger gap behind her armpits. She's got space on the front breastbone here, which I'll show you in a second. She's got no pinching at the bottom of her neck, at the top of her back, and she's got so much room for adjustment and movement. One of the key parts, as I just mentioned, is it's a really nice position on her breastbone here. Even though her breastbone sticks out a little, she's got lots of space in between the legs, and also around that breastbone, it is nicely padded. Even on such a small dog like Bertha, she's making use of the light attachment on the back with the Trek Bright light, and if she goes running around in the dark, perhaps it's winter, you can see her no problem. Knowing what we know about the Apex harness, it is a slightly difficult fit to get it absolutely perfect, so we're always on hand via chat box, email or socials, just to make sure if you want to get in touch, ask us a little question about the fitting, just to triple check, send us a little picture, because we love seeing pictures of your dogs, because the safety of your dog is our absolute priority.